Today we're going to be talking about the Supercore by Spectral Armaments. This is what powers most Nerf HPA setups. It is a back pressure style tank, meaning when you have the air pressure, it loads the dart, and when you release the pressure, it fires the air that was built up in the tank. So this is a pneumatic actuated cylinder tank loading mechanism that is required in many HPA builds, such as the Tempest. The Supercore is very easy to connect, very easy to use, very easy to maintain, and it gets a good range of performance. It can reach up to 400 or higher feet per second with as little as 100 PSI. The Supercore is pneumatically actuated, which means there's a lot of movement, and because of that, you've got some air seals in there. It can be necessary to maintain your Supercore by cleaning it out, adjusting it, and lubricating it. It's actually pretty easy. Spectre had this in mind when we designed these things, so a lot of times if they're just sitting for a long period of time without being used, you'll want to basically tune it up, and if you don't get full bolt retraction, because if there's too much resistance on going back, then you won't have full bolt retraction, which can mess up your cycle. So this one goes all the way in and out. You can hear it. You can feel the air. It's fun. And it's an air seal in there with O-rings, and so like any performance-based platform with air seal, the better air seal, the better performance. And so if you're leaking air at all, then you'll definitely want to make sure you're maintaining your core. So we'll just jump right into it. So to maintain your Supercore, you're going to want something to wipe the dirt off with, like a paper towel. You're going to want to use some O-ring safe lubricant, and then you might need some spare O-rings to replace if you get a lot of dirt in there or the O-rings are just worn out. Now you've got a handful of O-rings in here. Oh, you're also going to want a handful of tools as well. If you are trying to service the back end of it, you're going to want a wrench to pop this off. It can be kind of stiff, but you don't need to have it tightened a lot to access it. So there's the stem base, and you can see the bolt pushing against it. And then you've got your diaphragm, and this is a really custom piece that is difficult to source, but it creates the back pressure effect. So when you charge the tank and fill it with air, that diaphragm will then disengage to allow the air to flow, but as soon as you release the pressure, it'll suck the diaphragm in and move the air from the tank down the stem through the bolt and fire your dart. So you can make sure this is clean, lubricate your O-ring. If you notice your core is leaking from the back, you can lubricate or replace this O-ring in the back. Don't mess with the diaphragm, and that just screws back on. Normal maintenance should not require you messing with this O-ring, but only if you notice it's leaking from the rear, you can adjust it. So a lot of times for the Supercore, if you first get your Supercore or it's been sitting up for a while, it may not work as intended. A lot of times your bolt will not fully retract. The most common cause of that is the stem alignment. You can just do an Allen key or something pokey and just unscrew it. It's the front cover here. You've got a spacer with the return spring, and then you have your bolt base and O-ring. You've got your stem O-ring connected to the stem base, where you can see that there are holes where the air can flow through. What we're looking at is the stem. The stem should not wiggle too much, because if it's not straight, it'll rub inside the bolt and cause extra friction. So you'd want to tighten that stem down with your fingers, or maybe with a pair of pliers, carefully righty-tighty and tighten that down against the base, and then your core should slide nice and easy. Now you have a return spring as well, which you could adjust the tension of, which might help, but that's usually all you need to maintain your Supercore. Make sure your threads and internals are clean and lubricated. You also have this metal spacer here as well. And this tip here, you can switch out this tip here if you damage it. If you happen to jam your blaster really badly and scratch this up or ruin the O-ring, you can switch out this top piece. That's about it. So if you need to, you can replace the O-rings on the base or your tip or on the back or on your stem. Those are all O-rings included in our spare, so there's 1, 2, 3, 4 sizes of O-rings, and 1, 2, 3, 4 O-rings on your SuperCore, so you should have plenty of spares in case you do manage to get dirt in there and you wear out your O-rings. But I have not yet needed to do that, so the lifespan of these things seems to be pretty good. If you do charge your system and you hear or notice any leaks around the core, go ahead and clean out those O-rings, replace the O-rings if needed, and lubricate them. But other than that, it's pretty simple. You want to keep your stem nice and tight, keep your O-rings clean and lubricated. That's it. So super simple, super easy. Do not service your SuperCore with it pressurized. It's probably a bad idea. Also, you should wear eye protection when working with tools and such. So for your SuperCore, to check for leaks, you talked about O-rings and the dirt, but also you can check your threading or your threads, your fittings. So you've got your threads, that thread. However, you want to make sure that it doesn't leak around those threads. And so you'll want to use some thread tape. And in order to do this, you'll want to pay attention to your rotation of the thread. So this is a right-handed thread, so tightening would be twisting clockwise. So when we wrap the thread, we want to wrap it such that when you tighten the fitting, the thread doesn't get looser. You want the tape to go in the direction of the thread. So your threads are going, this way. Imagine you're starting at the end and going up. So you're gonna start your tape here and go up. Now notice I am holding the tape so I can pull it tight. I'm not putting on this way because as I pull it, it'll want to unravel and that'll make for a loose tape job. So you want to make sure your tape is clean and flat and not bunched up like this. So you want to kind of spread it out. And then I usually just hold the fitting in my right hand, tape in my left hand, wrap it around, pull it tight. Something like that. Pull it tight. So good. There you go. Nice and tight. So that way I can kind of twist it and keep it really tight on there so the threads can seal, the tape can seal those threads. Break it off nice and clean. And so now when I twist it in, the tape will get tighter and not looser, and it shouldn't bunch up. And so that's how you can check that, check your fittings and your connections for air leaks. A lot of toy tanks operate with pressurized air, but they use a plastic tank because that's easy to manufacture. This is an all metal tank that can handle over 100 PSI easily. And so it's much safer than even most typical store-bought, Nerf brand air-powered blasters. And so it's very safe. Do not over pressurize it over 120 PSI. However, that still gives you a good margin of safety. So the SuperCore is all metal, sturdy, reliable, and consistent, easy to maintain. Costs a little bit, but you definitely get what you pay for, which is quality and reliability.